Vampires. They're everywhere.
You're one of them, aren't you?
No. I'm something else.
Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University. I am your professor, Mario Rivera, and joining me is the illustrious doctoral student, Cyclone MC, who has a bachelor's in the MCU, has a master's in the multiverse, but is going for their dissertation in Marvel studies. Cyclone, how are you doing?
I am doing excellent. I am so excited to be here with you, recording the show. It's going to be incredible.
Yes, we've been talking about this for a while. Of course, this all stemmed from the fact that in our Discord, you have a private channel where you scream about Marvel, and you, of course, explored through the entire MCU universe, watched all the movies, and a specific. What was the order that you actually watched it in? You watched it in like a timeline order?
I watched it in an awful convoluted order, and if you want to hear about every single detail and how I watched it, go check out the Dollar Slice podcast episode with me on it. I explained exactly the order I watched everything in. It's ridiculous and convoluted. I know. Don't yell at me. I know it was ridiculous, but I had a blast.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, of course, you did finish the entire, at least all the movies, including all the way up to Shang-Chi. So you're already caught up there. You also caught up on, which actually started because we watched WandaVision one day in the Discord, and then you were like, what's this universe? And then you just jumped in. Not only that, you then, of course, did the extra credit, which was go and watch all the Netflix shows, the Hulu shows, and the freeform shows. So you have quite a bit of all of the extended knowledge that is sort of MCU sort of related. And that was an accomplishment in itself. The fact that you've gone in, and not only that, well, I also forgot the ABC shows. You also probably did Agent Carter, and then
yep. All of the TV shows.
Yes. All the stuff that's considered either non-canon or multiverse or whatever. Also, comic books. You jumped in the comic books. You also jumped in and got that. How's that experience been so far?
It's great. One of my dear friends, Alexis Blake, which you can find at Alexis Blake Read Comics on TikTok. She has so many amazing, amazing guides for people who are new to comics. And I'm not new to comics, but I'm new to the MCU, so I used her guides. She had like suggested reading for certain characters. And then one of her big pieces of advice is to choose one character and follow and just read through every single thing they've been in since their start. And then you get like exposure to like the ideas of different events, and you get more background knowledge before you really dive into everything. So I chose the character Echo because she's total badass deaf character, a Native American character who is, upcoming in the Hawkeye show played by Alexa Cox, who's a phenomenal actor. So I chose Echo, and I read all of the things she was in, and then sort of started branching out to other characters that I found through that reading.
No, that's fantastic. And of course, I'm very excited for the other projects that you have down the road and other podcasts. Is that known knowledge now? We can talk about that?
Talk about what?
Your podcasting stint with... We'll cut that out.
I don't know. I don't know when we're announcing that, so I don't know when this is going to come out, so I don't want to talk about it just in case.
All right, I will cut. Yeah, that is true. This could come out much later too. That's true. Okay. Well, that is all well and good. I am so happy that you've gotten and dig deep into the MCU, but there is a blind spot, and of course, that blind spot is all of the Marvel movies before the MCU, and I'm talking X-Men. I'm talking Spider-Man. I'm talking Elektra. I'm talking Ghost Rider. So this is actually going to be a fun podcast because we're going to go to, and if obviously you see the title of this one, we're going to go through all of the non-MCU canon and just enjoy the movies as they came out in the order in which they were released. And we're starting this episode, of course, which we're going to actually start our very first class knock, 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 whatever soundbite or whatever I'm going to put in here because I think that'd be funny. Class is now in session. We are entering history class. We're, of course, going to be, we watched Blade, 1998's Blade. Of course, directed by Stephen Norrington, who, if you don't know, has done not a whole lot of directing. He's actually done a lot of like creature work in other films, if I'm not mistaken. But his most notable movie after Blade is, of course, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, starring Sean Connery. If you have not seen that, definitely a interesting movie. It's definitely something that, you know, people are a fan of the comics, and then you see that movie. They're quite different, but still, I think it's a fun watch. But, you know, who knows? It's not a part of this MCU, so I'm not going to talk about this. Of course, written by David S. Goyer, who got to start writing the Demonic Toys movies for Full Moon back in the day. However, he is responsible for movies such as Batman Begins. He's written partially The Dark Knight, Batman versus Superman, if I'm not mistaken. And, of course, we'll be directing the third Blade film that we will see later in this list. So he'll be a recurring thing, good or bad, and we'll figure that out later. Of course, the studio that released this film, this is not a Disney property as of right now. Of course, it was sold to New Line Cinema, which is the company responsible for the Nightmare on Elm Street films, as well as the Lord of the Rings, which... yeah, Lord of the Rings is big, so that's probably interesting. That, of course, that their biggest thing they're known for is this scary movie and Blade at this point. So that's fun. The movie, of course, stars Wesley motherfucking Snipes, which I'm so excited to talk about his performance, and we're gonna get to that in just a second. It also stars Stephen Dorff, Chris Christopherson. This name is where I lose it. Is it in Bushy? It was like, because it was like...
You're asking the deaf one. I don't know.
Fair enough. Bushy Rice, sorry if I missed your name. Donald Logue and Tracy Lords, and we'll talk about Tracy Lords right at the beginning, because I'm very upset about that. Of course, the plot of the movie is, in a world where vampires walk the earth...
You want me to...
Yeah, do it. Do this, please, actually.
I'll take the time.
Do it.
All right, so the plot of this movie goes... In a world where vampires walk the earth, Blade has a goal. His goal is to rid the world of all vampire evil. When Blade witnesses a vampire bite Dr. Karen Jensen, he fights away the beast and takes Jensen back to his hideout. Here, alongside Abram Whistler, Blade attempts to help heal Jensen. The vampire Quinn, who was attacked by Blade, reports back to his master, Deacon Frost, who is planning a huge surprise for the human population.
Love it. I love that. This is perfect. You're going to do the plot going forward. I think that's awesome. That's hilarious. Of course, this film features not that many characters that I saw. I don't know if you have any research on this, but the only 3 characters really that are of matter, of course, is Blade, Deacon Frost, and Blade's mother's in this. That is pretty much... I don't know if you saw any research or anything else.
I saw there was a little bit about Abraham Whistler, I think, is in...
From what I understand, because I looked that up. So he is not a comic creation. He is created for this movie. However, he showed up on the animated Spider-Man series, which is sort of how he's connected.
So he was created here, but then showed up later. In like...
kind of like a Harley Quinn situation where Harley Quinn was created on the animated show, but then now is like a mainstream thing. I think that's pretty much kind of how it was. And honestly, I'm happy for his inclusion. I think he's a really great character in this movie, despite some of the things he says. But of course, we're going to get to yet our next class, which of course is really more of an open discussion. It is, of course, the Stanley Seminar. This is the part where we actually get to talk about the movie. And I get to ask Sly, what did you think of Blade?
I have so many notes. Like while I was watching this, I was writing so many things down, just like all of my thoughts. I think it was pretty well balanced. It kept me pretty engaged the whole way through. The animation, like the special effects, like with the vampires and stuff, held up pretty decently, I think. Like, I wasn't looking at that and thinking, ooh, gosh, that's really old effects. Yeah. Like, I thought it was pretty decent. I had such a blast. Like, this was just it's so silly and so ridiculous and so much fun. Um, I do want to shout out one of my first notes for this movie is gay with 3 exclamation
Yes,
points
it begins
written
there.
giant because you open up especially I noticed in the like vampire club scene.
famous
There's like
famous
2
vampire club
girls
scene.
just macking on each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah." Just we're getting right into this. The MCU could never.
Yeah, so I want to mention that specifically because I love. So the beginning of the movie obviously is it's this woman leads this man into the back of a meat packing plant, and it's a secret nightclub for vampires. And I love that she brings him in, but immediately leaves him and just goes to party with the girl. Like, that is my favorite thing. And shout out. So that lady, of course, is Tracy Lords. God bless you. Mwah. I love you, Tracy Lords. Of course, was in films such as Crybaby and oh man, I'm so sad that she immediately dies in this movie, like very early on. I was like, she's in the goddamn credits, and she dies like within 5 minutes of this movie. So that bummed me out because I didn't remember. I didn't remember she was in the movie. So when I saw this again, I was like, oh, Tracy Lords is here, and immediately just iced by Blade in a fun way, to be honest. But yeah.
If it was any other scenario, I would call them out for burying their gays, but they just killed everybody, so like I can't have a problem with it. Like everybody died.
No, pretty much everybody died, and they're about to sacrifice that boy. Oh, by the way, the bloodbath scene, that to me is just like, oh my god, everyone just starts going wild. It's sort of like the big reveal of the vampires. The music is pumping in the scene, and we'll talk about the music a little bit later. But yeah, I definitely absolutely adore this scene. It is so iconic for obviously the beginning of it, but then also the fight that happens afterwards. But yeah, any more thoughts obviously on the characters or anything else?
Yeah, also in the like right after the like brave scene, whatever, the dude who was guarding the door in the meat packing facility, he starts screaming, and I want to point out the captions just said screaming in Slavic language, and I was like, that's just screaming, dude. It cracked me up. I was like, screaming in Slavic language. All right.
It's like screaming with an accent. Oh. Oh man. So I'm gonna pull from my notes here really quick because like I said, I took some notes, but really they're just definitive statements. And this is basically what I wrote. 2 minutes into this movie fucking rules. Tracy Lords is awesome. Rave in the back of a meatpacking plant. Lesbian vampires. Bloodbath. How does Blade not get covered in blood?
Right? He was just like pristine. I'm like, how?
Was he hiding behind the DJ? Because the DJ is the only other person that doesn't get wet. That's what I'm curious about.
No, because he came in from the opposite side.
Yeah, which other people behind him were wet. He had an umbrella.
Love that for him.
God, yeah. And then of course I wrote Tracy Lords dies too soon, and Donald Logue is getting a blowjob in the back of the scene. That's I also noticed that was a bizarre thing. I was like, okay, everyone's having party here. Good for him. He goes through a lot in this movie, by the way, which of course is Quinn. Yeah. So this obviously is then the first introduction of Blade. What was your thoughts on Wesley Snipes as the titular character?
I thought he was great. Like, the character is standoffish and, kind of a loner, but he's just like, there's so much care, I think, put into this performance that you really feel attached, even though the movie's not trying to force you to feel attached at all.
Yeah.
They're like, whatever, vampires killing them all, whatever. But like, I think his performance is just so done with such care that you can't help but love him.
Yeah, and I do find it interesting how in certain aspects, yeah, you're right, he's standoffish, but there's certain parts where he is empathetic, and I like how they show it. They show it in like a few different ways. Obviously, the big thing is he saves Karen, right? He immediately sees his mother, which I don't know how he could do that. He was a baby. I thought
was one of the moments that I was like, and then I was like, suspension of disbelief.
suspension. I had to suspend my disbelief a couple times, and I'll talk about that. But that was the first one. I ended up like coming around to it because he has a photo of his mom, and so I don't know if that was just sort of a projection thing that that he sort of conjured in his mind of what his mom looked like, or whatever that was. But
I just put it up to freaky vampire memory.
Freaky vampire memory. And then the other moment of like affection that he had was the person selling him serum. Like he just gives him a hug.
Yeah, I love that dude.
Yeah.
That scene was one of my favorite moments because something we don't see often is just like casual affection between like men on screen, but especially you don't see that with black characters at all. And I thought that was just like such a great scene where he's just going through his life. He has all these people who like he's connected with that just like know it, like he's there and care that he's like coming in early, which means something's going on, and just like casually hugs that dude. Like I thought that scene was so beautiful.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot as well. My also favorite note about Blade is he's never not Blade. He's always Blade. Like no matter what, he's walking down normal streets and he's Blade. He's got a gun. He's got a sword.
Fully decked out all the time.
All the time.
Why not?
I do love where this movie is set. I believe it's in LA, but like in downtown LA, because that area, it looks like that in a lot of ways. There are some like there's not flowing trash everywhere that I saw in one particular scene, but like the buildings look that way, and I thought that was cool to see because I got to stay there during E3 one year, and then I just saw the areas. I was like, yeah, it looks like exactly like that, and that's an area of LA you don't see often. You usually see either it's like a neighborhood that's being plagued by gang violence, or you're going to see Hollywood Hills, right? You don't see the inner workings of like downtown. And I think that is what was cool about the setting of this one specifically. The rest of the series, things are different, but see at least in this perspective, I thought was cool. I also noticed that during the daytime, it was heavily saturated with white light, which I thought was interesting too. Like it was definitely bright. Facilitating not only, the fact that, he's a vampire and he's walking during the day, but there's also the idea that it's possible that Karen's character could potentially still turn to a vampire and it could be affecting her. So I thought that was a cool way to show it.
I want to say when they introduced her and she was a hematologist, I was like, they're going to make her a vampire. That's just too much irony to not.
Oh boy.
I do have one final note before we move on to our next question. And that's this movie is simultaneously very sexy and not sexy at all.
100%.
And I don't know how they achieved it because it's like, it's pretty sexy, but also not at all.
No.
I'm just like,
like
I don't know how they do.
And I want to know in what universe that Quinn, Donald Logue's character, is perceived as a hot figure, because there's a scene where they're like in the penthouse and he's like laying on top of two like beautiful women. I'm just like, what is going on? It's just ridiculous. However, I will say, and we haven't really talked about this character yet because I think I have a crush on him. Deacon Frost is fucking hot in this movie. Yeah, he's got that energy, and he just has a cool ass look.
I have a quote about that.
Yeah.
It was we're the top of the fucking food chain, and I wrote that quote and just wrote hot.
yeah. As a matter of fact, oh God, I can't wait to get to the next seven, but we're not there yet. There was something else. The only thing about the CGI, and to me the problem is only in like, the blood dripping at the end just looked like it was out of the TV show reboot. But other than that, I thought him getting cut up at the end and him like coming back together. I thought that still was totally cool. Like when he does like the hand thing and it like looks fucking awesome. He's always like got no buttons on his shirt, just always open. So cool. I did want to talk about. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, the other thing was at that ending, the flying skeletons. I went,
Yeah. Straight out of, like Mortal Kombat. Like, what the hell's going on? Oh, that is actually some of my other notes was, what was it? Deacon Frost loves EDM. I love that. Let's see here. Well, Mortal Kombat is playing on the TV for no reason in the background in the party, which I thought was also... Oh boy, yeah. Of course, one of my favorite quotes is also, "You tell Frost it's open season on all suckheads." So definitely fantastic. Let's before we move on to the counterparts. Let's talk about Whistler specifically and the relationship between him and Blade. Only because I find it fascinating that yes, both it's a mentor thing, but I do find it's very fatherly, and I love that it's fatherly between sort of like a black child and white parent as well. That in a movie that's about vampires still managed to be somewhat powerful and interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think I was really surprised by how much care they took with their characters of color. And I specifically remember thinking, wow, there's so many black women in this movie.
Yes.
And that is something you still hardly see. Like, dark-skinned black women. So I thought that was really great. But yes, specifically that relationship between Whistler and Blade is so interesting in how they feel like equals, but they also have such a deep like emotional connection, like that like father-son bond.
Yeah, to the point where I got a little sad during Whistler's final moments in this movie where he's telling Blade to do it, and Blade just doesn't do it, but he still is Blade. Like, he just walks away and doesn't break a facade, but you hear it and you feel it though. Like that to me was also like very big, that I was very happy that they were exploring in this movie. And that was something. So I do want to talk, but I did also want to say Whistler is a fun character because my favorite shot of him is he's putting gas in a car and he's spilling everywhere and immediately lights up a cigarette.
Yeah. I have a note about that. I completely forgot. Thank you. Yeah. I lost my mind. I cracked up because he just grabs the gas, it spills anywhere, he lights up a lighter, lights a cigarette, and I go, oh no, this is gonna be bad.
Yeah.
And then nothing happens. And I'm just like, all right.
It's so fucking funny. It's so funny.
Live your life, man.
Are you a fan of vampire movies in general? Like, do you follow the rules on certain ones? What did you think of the rules in this one specifically?
Not really. I didn't think they were egregious.
Yeah.
I think they, did a good job of including all the typical tropes that you expect to see, and also picking and choosing what they wanted to subvert. I thought they did that really good. Talking about like stakes and crosses and whatever, being like, that's ridiculous. I'm not a huge vampire movie person, so I don't know what else that they could have done really well compared to that genre. But yeah, I didn't think it was like egregious or overdone at all.
No, for sure. The only thing I thought was missing out of the sort of like, the usual canon of vampires is the sort of like allowing you to go inside someone's house. But they never really have that issue. It's usually like open areas. So it's like, I guess that's fine for the most part. Because at first I thought it was vampires going to attack Karen in her house, but it wouldn't make sense. It was daytime. But the fact that they introduced familiars, which I was very happy that was actually something interesting and could be facilitating and is a big part of vampire lore, which I thought was cool. However, I did want to call out Blade calls the familiar vampire a little hooker, and I thought that was hilarious. Blade has like the best lines. One thing that totally like escaped my brain, just totally gone, totally forgot about for decades, is Pearl the Record Keeper. What did you think of Pearl the Record Keeper?
God.
Which is referred to as he.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Is his voice super high pitched or something?
I don't know. Like I just thought they weren't the way they presented it was just like I couldn't tell what was happening because there's this giant globulous creature, but I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
He's just chilling.
Yeah.
I loved the records room. I thought that was
cool.
Gorgeous. And then I do have a note in here that they're like just gonna shoot up the Bible. All right.
Yeah.
When they completely like, and I'm like, that was like one moment that I was like, if this is supposed to be so special to like the vampires, why are they picking a fight in here? Like,
Yeah. Which it's in a strip club.
All right. You do you.
I just, it's so funny. And I just love that. Again, I wrote another note. Nothing's cooler than Asian men wearing black suits and sunglasses indoors smoking cigarettes, because that is above this record room. Like, what the hell? Loved it so much. Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the next question, of course, which is, let's see here, which we kind of don't have a thing for yet, but what do we think about the compared to the MCU counterpart? So,
yeah. So, the vibes that I was getting from this was the Netflix TV show Punisher. Not in
Okay.
the way you're thinking. Not
Sure.
about the like shooting or whatever. Specifically, like Whistler's like backstory is very similar in that regards. And then Blade's affinity to adopting strays. And so I felt like those two combined kind of make up the entire personality of Punisher.
100%.
And I thought that was really interesting to see that dichotomy that was so familiar in this character I'd already seen.
No, for sure. And of course, Blade, I'm glad that you were able to compare it to something else very similar into the MCU, because there is no Blade character as of right now, no vampires as we know of. Actually, I think there's a joke about vampires, but I don't know if they've actually had like an actual vampire on screen. Well, no, yeah, I don't think so. But we'll see.
Canonically yet.
No, we'll find
see.
out. And I'm curious how they're going to introduce them and how they've been a part of the world. But yeah, supposedly, of course, Blade is a project coming up with Marvel. It is going to be starring Mahershala Ali, which, hell yeah. Of course, previously was on Netflix, Luke Cage. So that's awesome. Really excited to see his take on the character. However, I will say Wesley Snipes has made it mostly iconic. Wesley Snipes is actually not the only person that's played Blade. There was a Blade TV show that is technically canon to these movies, but it only ran for one season on Spike Network, and no one remembers it and you can't find it. So we're not going to have to worry about that.
The other thing that it took me so long throughout watching this movie to place was all I could think was, wow, like Blade's fighting style is really interesting. And I couldn't figure out what about it was kind of, I was like, that's a really interesting fighting style. And then I realized it's very much like light on his feet and like acrobatic.
Yeah.
Like he's not doing flips or whatever, but it's very like acrobatic style movement. And the only time we really see that in the MCU is in Bucky and Natasha's fighting styles, which it seems like is kind of a nod to in the comics when Bucky trained Natasha in the Red Room, which isn't like MCU canon, but it feels kind of like a nod that their fighting styles are so similar. And Blade's fighting style really seemed similar to that to me. So I'm really interested to see what their take on his fighting style is coming up.
For sure. Definitely. Very, very curious. And we will actually be talking about fighting styles actually in the quiz section of this episode. So we'll talk about that in a second. Now I get to reveal some fun trivia about that. So very, very excited. Okay. I think we're going to move on to the next question, which of course is, does this movie hold up and is it still worth watching? Because we're going to be asking this question quite a bit on the show. I will tell you that. Sly, what do you think? Does this movie hold up?
I think it holds up for me. I
Yeah.
I really enjoyed watching it. I didn't feel like there was any point that I was like, ugh, I have to watch this. And so like, um, would I watch it again? Maybe.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say a hard yes, but I'm so glad I watched it, and I feel like I didn't lose anything by watching it in 2021. Like I feel like I got just as much out of it as if I had watched it earlier.
True. And I'm wondering once we get the Blade in the MCU, I'm very curious how to compare those two and how it compares and contrasts. And I would love down the road when that movie comes out, maybe we do a comparison between the two. It's sort of a revisit to this class. So that way we could, really get some insights on that. But yeah, I think overall, in my opinion, watching it, I think it holds up quite well. Wesley Snipes is just fun to watch. His one-liners are incredible. And the other surprise that I had with it was Stephen Dorff's character as Deacon Frost is actually really fun just to sort of be there, and his monologues are really great.
Yeah.
And, he has some great scenes with both Blade and with other people, specifically him and the head vampire. I don't even know his name, but, that sunblock scene or the sunrise scene, which I thought was hilarious. I was like, how are you gonna be okay? And then they explain it later that it was sunblock, and I'm like, okay, all right. I was like, that's fine. But yeah, no, I definitely think that this movie is something still worth watching, especially for the opening scene alone. I think is amazing. So definitely check that out. And then I think the fight scene at the end, when Blade is sort of revitalized and just whoops ass on people. Even the fight with Deacon's a little short for my liking, for him being a god, supposedly. But at the same time, I think I forgive it just because I love the performances. And yeah, I think this one's definitely something I would still revisit in the future. So I think that's a good start for this podcast. We'll see how that goes continuing. Yeah. Is there any other notes that you had that you want to highlight really quick before we go on to the next segment? Next class, I should say.
I think. Oh, we did not talk about the dude fucking his mom.
Okay, yes. One of the biggest twists in the movie is the fact that Deacon Frost is responsible for Blade in the first place. Let's be honest. The fact that he is a daywalker, but he's also banging his mom. His mom's a vampire as well. And not only that, his mom's a little freaky towards Blade.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to process that. It's a little, it's a
I don't
lot.
know how to feel with that. My notes just said, gross.
Yeah, I said, Mama Blade trying to fuck is what I wrote. So.
Oh, and looking at my notes, I had one thing I wanted to talk about in the MCU Carno Park that I forgot about. How many times is that dude gonna lose an arm? There's so many lost arms in the MCU, especially with like phase 3, where like everybody lost
phase
an arm?
1 or phase 2, I think. Yeah, everyone lost an arm or something. Yeah.
That dude lost his arm
twice. And then to be honest, I felt he went out sort of like lame. Like I wish it was a longer death, but that's fine. I'm totally cool with the way the vampires die in this movie, in the same way that the Buffy vampires die, where they just dust immediately and just like fade away. Which I'm like, it's cool. But yeah, I think he dies very quickly. But otherwise, yeah, you still get all to the fun stuff. I did write also, actually, there's a focus on race and half-bloods in this, sort of like this like half-blood and I was born a vampire. They don't really go into how you're born a vampire, other than obviously Blade is born because his mom was bit when she was pregnant. Like I'm very curious. They don't go into that whatsoever, and I'm curious about that detail and what makes them so special, because they are completely dispatched in this movie as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not sure of the hierarchy of this, if this is just a local sect of higher vampires or what. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's put in this movie that is not fully explored that I would love for them to explore. And maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe they'll explore it later in the other movies. So very curious about that I found interesting. I did it fun during a conversation with Blade and Deacon Frost in the park when he's holding the little girl. Frost just calls him an Uncle Tom, which I thought was really fucking fucked up.
Yeah. That was a oof.
That
moment
was
for sure.
something I did not put in the next segment. But yes, definitely thought that was interesting. But of course, my last note is this movie rules ass. Okay, moving on to our next class. Now, this is a little bit of a surprise for Sly, and that's because we're going into drama class. And by drama class, I mean we're going to do dramatic readings of quotes from this movie.
It's incredible.
So I found some spicy quotes from Blade, which of course you can find on IMDb pretty much. And some of these are, you've heard some of these already, but we're going to do them again. We're going to try to do as best as I can. Of course, you mentioned this earlier, and I want you to do the Deacon Frost one if you could please.
Oh, this one?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, this is
All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself.
all right. I'll tell you what we are, sister. We're the top of the fucking food chain. The blood god's coming and after tonight, you people are fucking history. He's a hurricane, an act of God. Anyone caught in his path will be instantly turned. Everyone you've ever known, everyone you've ever fucking loved. It won't matter who's pureblood and who's not. How are you gonna cure the whole fucking world? And Blade's blood is the key.
Excellent. Absolutely. This section with Deacon Frost is one of my favorites, and I loved his performance of him saying it was like, we're on top of the fucking food chain. I'm like, yeah. So,
Yeah, that was so good.
love it. Of course. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. You did this one earlier, so I'm gonna try my best to do this one. Okay. All right, here we go.
Take it.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Followed immediately by him fucking roundhouse kicking a vial.
Yes, a vial into his fucking head, which then, of course, explodes him into 1,000 pieces, which those effects still look good as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill, which... what does that mean? I guess it's just always trying to do it the hard way, but this is a totally different way to say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's real fucking hard to ice skate uphill, I guess.
I guess. So yeah, this line is another one of those iconic, like, strictly from Blade, just like some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill. So glad to do that justice. If you can, go ahead and do Blade if you can. I want to hear your Blade impression.
Oh God, is this line in the car? I can't remember exactly when this.
I
happened.
believe it is. I think it's right before he like sends her to her apartment, I think.
All right. So he goes, "You better wake up. The world you live in is just a sugar-coated topping. There's another world beneath it, the real world. And if you want to survive it, you better learn to pull the trigger."
Another one of those like deep, just like, damn, Blade. All right, go off. And I'll do this last one only because it's short and sweet. And this, by the way, I was like, this is another one of those interesting, like, yeah, why is he the only one getting shot at who looks like a normal person versus the vampire that's burnt up? But of course, it's after being shot by hospital security, which I think they were police officers. Motherfucker, are you on your damn mind? Which is like such a like break from the I'm a brooding vampire hunter. Like, motherfucker.
Right?
God. Absolutely adore everything about that. So that might be a recurring segment, or we might change classes. Who knows? But that was fun. We have another good one for next week's episode, so I'm very excited for that too.
Oh yeah.
Moving on to our next class, music room. Now, music room is obviously a class where you play piano and stuff like that. And it's a big thing about discussion music. Superhero movies around this time are remembered for their original soundtracks. There are so many like artists that contributed and really blow up around that. There's also music videos that are usually around this time where it features like either scenes from movies or character cameos and stuff like that. And so every episode, if the movie obviously has it, we're going to go ahead and talk about some of those bangers because, you know, we're going to get in the Spider-Man era and I'm very excited about that. So once we get there, we're going to talk about this one. Now, of course, Does the music hold up in this movie? There's not a lot that I can really speak for, to be totally honest. As a matter of fact, the actual original OST doesn't have a lot of the music in the movie, from my understanding. There's really just one song and one song only, and that's why I highlighted it in our document right now, which I'll provide the link to so you can listen to it, because we can't play it, obviously, in here. But there is a song by New Order, which also has various other artists, but it's basically just a like EDM, just like like that's literally it. But that's famous because that is like everywhere on the internet in the early 2000s. Like I saw that like on all the like stupid like flash animation videos. Like people use this song to death. Like it's both a awesome and terrible song. It's like
It fucking bop.
yeah, no,
Like-
for sure.
You're just it feels like a rave, right?
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
just like I think tonally it fit. All of the music in this movie felt tonally appropriate and really fit the vibe they were going for. And I think especially like all those like club scenes and like another one that stands out to me is the performers that are in the area above the records where they're like on like a like boxing ring or whatever, and then you have all the like businessmen just like chilling smoking cigars. I think that performance was really well done as well.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that as well. Of course, the soundtrack itself has a mix of rap and EDM, most notably tracks featuring Mobb Deep, Mystical, which a lot of the song titles are like Edge of the Blade or Watch Out for My Blade. You know, like it's like a lot of like knife stuff, which I thought was hilarious. KRS-One, Busy Bone, and Junkie XL, which notably later I think did something for these movies, or at least I think they probably did something for the DC universe. I've heard his name before when it comes to soundtracks for movies, so we'll probably hear them at a later time. But that's pretty much going to do us for the music room on this week. I think we'll have more to talk about with the movies going forward, so very excited for that. Of course, upcoming is our next section, which of course is quiz time. Quiz time, of course. We got to do a little bit of a pop quiz. We got some questions here. I'm going to go ahead and start copying and pasting. These are easy ones this week. I just didn't want to overburden you, early on in the show. So these are going to be some quick ones. So some of these things are like you can take random guesses on, but it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. So for the first question in our pop quiz, who was originally going to play Blade? So I give you, this is a multiple choice. Was it A, Will Smith, B, Cuba Gooding Jr., or C, LL Cool J?
I'm trying to think of like how old is LL Cool J right now? Like
I would say he's like no, I think he's similar with like Wesley Snipes, if not a little bit younger. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, Will Smith is like in his like 20s, I think.
I have no idea. Keep in mind, this movie came out before I was born.
Of course. This is like Will Smith's like Independence Day. If you've seen that, like it's post his Fresh Prince, so he's starting to get in the movie. So it's highly possible that he was chosen to be Blade. Of course, Cuba Gooding Jr. is mostly famous for Jerry Maguire, which was also before this movie, I believe. So he's got a rising career in this as well. So LL Cool J, I believe I can only tell you like movies after the 2000s. I can't tell you Deep Blue Sea. I'm not sure when that came out, but he was in that movie too.
Gosh, I have no idea.
If you had to take a random educated guess, who do you think?
I would say B, I think.
Cuba Gooding Jr.?
Because Will Smith, he's not into anything serious yet, right? Like he's done mostly more comedic, lighthearted stuff.
I could give you that.
And I feel like LL Cool J was just rapping. Like I don't think he was acting yet.
Yeah, it's a high possibility that this is an in-between period, but I think like roughly at this point he was starting to become an actor. So, okay. So you're saying B, Cuba Gooding Jr.? The answer is LL Cool J almost was Blade.
Really?
Yes, which I've sourced this. I sourced this from a Screen Rant article. I will look deeper, but so LL Cool J was supposedly in the running to do it, but I think he had to back out. And of course, they got Wesley Snipes, which was a way better choice in my opinion. He definitely embodies this role as we'll talk about later, but definitely wanted to, at the very least, have this in. Will Smith was not, as far as I know, not considered. Cuba Jr. These are totally ones I made up. Another person that was, though, was Denzel Washington, which I wrote down as a fake answer, but then I did research, and in another report said that he was up for the role, so I took him out of the running. But he was another one that we could have got Denzel as Blade, which would have been...
That's funny. I love LL Cool J in like NCIS and stuff, but like I could not see him as Blade.
Some motherfuckers always want to escape uphill. That's my LL Cool J. I can't do a Denzel, but I would wish I could. Okay, moving on to the next question, which is, without looking, what is Blade's tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh gosh, that is a great question. Can I give a range, or do I have to?
Yeah, I'll give you a range. Or you
Okay.
I'll tell you he's not in the top 80. So it's below that. And he's not in the bottom
I would say,
30.
I would say like a mid to high 70s.
Mid to high 70s? Okay.
I don't know if that's over or undershooting it, but I'm thinking about like how people would have reacted to this movie. I think that's about where it would land.
And this is fun. We didn't really talk about this. We didn't talk about this though, but this is fun to talk about because at this point, the major movies that were superhero dominant in the major motion picture was Superman the movies and those subsequent sequels, and Batman. Batman was probably the biggest. I think roughly in this. Actually, hold on. I believe within this same year, Batman and Robin was 97. So it was the year before, and so
yeah.
So this is after
Batman and Robin, very different movie.
Very, very different movie. And this is actually the first since a series of one other movie that we'll talk about that at the end, about the other movies that we skipped. But other than that, yeah, this is the second major motion picture from Marvel. So it is interesting. And not only that, it is a rated R movie. It is also featuring a black superhero, which is also pretty crazy to think about. And the second movie featured a very prominent racial character. So sadly, for Rotten Tomatoes right now, it's sitting at 58. However, audience
I didn't
scores.
think about. So what I failed to consider is that while critics are still very much cis white men, at the time it was even more so.
Yes.
And so I could definitely see that score from critics at that time.
Fair enough. Yeah, that is definitely a way to put it. And of course, right now it has an audience score of 78, close to 80%. So that you were on the mark.
I got it right on the nose.
I'm going to give
there.
you, honestly, you get credit for this one because you, at the very least, were the zeitgeist of where people are actually feeling about this movie. And I think that's important. As much as we want to talk about how people thought then, and even like some people are writing reviews for it now and still messing with the score, I still think that 78 is definitely where this thing propels. So I think that's a solid 1 point there for you. I'm giving that to you because I think that was a solid answer. Let me go back to my questions here. Okay. The other question I have is, true or false, does Wesley Snipes do his own stunts?
I feel like this is a little bit cheating because I saw the credits and he has a stunt double listed in the credits. I don't know how much they utilize that. Like they have to cast one regardless of how much
True.
The actor does their own stunts. So true or false? I feel like he did most of them because a lot of the stunts were pretty close on his face. And usually if somebody's subbing out, they're going to do a wider shot for that.
That is correct.
So,
yeah. You're right. It is true. He does do his own stunts. He does have a stunt double, obviously, for certain things. And there's some stuff that we'll talk about in the other movies about the stunt double. But when it comes to this one specifically, so it says, not only does he do his own stunts, he is actually a karate master. In fact, during the movie Demolition Man, he was told to slow down because he was too fast for the camera. So
incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, it definitely shows
Yeah.
in his fighting style for sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's an actual,
incredible.
yeah, he actually knows his shit. And that's what's really cool about Blade specifically is that, yeah, you can see it in his performance. And when he's on it, he's on it. It's awesome. So, yeah, definitely love that Wesley Snipes can do his stunts. And the final question, this is going to be a recurring question because the MCU is chock filled of these. Almost all of the movies except for this obviously recent period. Does Stan Lee have a cameo? Did you find Stan Lee in this movie?
I didn't see him, but also this was 98. I don't think I know what Stanley looked like in 98.
Fair enough. That is also
So
fine.
I could very much this is like the second like Marvel property, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a good chance he did, but I didn't see it.
Okay. Is that a yes or a no?
That's a strong maybe. That's a no, I didn't see it, but yeah, it probably was in there and I missed it.
I'm going to give you another partial credit because no, you did not see him in this movie because he's not in this movie. However, he did film a scene.
Okay.
He did film a scene. He filmed, he is one of the EMTs. He's one of the EMTs that finds the charred remains of Quinn. So, or a cop. He's one of the two. But yeah, he did film a scene. He is not though in the final cut, which is sad. So no, in this movie he does not. But will we see him in the future of the extended Marvel movies? You have to find out and see for the rest of the episode. So okay, that concludes, of course, quiz time. I'm going back to homeroom. We're about to leave school today for the day. So I just want to do final thoughts on the movie. What was your overall perception and your final statement on this movie?
I really enjoyed it. With some things that didn't like sit 100% with me, considering the fact that it is a rated R movie, so they can go there, right? It is from 1998. I really liked it. I had a good time watching this. I would say I liked it. I really liked it. We already talked about it. It holds up pretty well. Um, and there's so many good quips. Like the quips, the lines, the quotes are just so incredible. And I'm gonna remember a lot of these quotes after watching that for sure.
I'm definitely going to be dropping these quotes throughout the Point in Progress podcast going forward, which is going to be so fun. But yeah, I agree. I adore this movie. I think that if you are one of those collectors that has all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a box set or anything as an addendum, I think this is definitely something that should be on your shelf as well. It is in 4K. I'm very happy to report that. So if you want to see the best version of it, it is available. I'm very curious of how those graphics look in 4K. Which, by the way, we watched the next movie that we're gonna do. I watched that in 4K, which was really cool. I did find some fun little mistakes in the film, which I will talk about in the next episode. So that's gonna be great. But little teaser. So yeah, I say check out Blade. Blade as a Wesley Snipes vehicle is fantastic in terms of seeing what he can do as both a sort of like serious comedic actor, because you can't really take him too seriously, which I think is hilarious, but also as like an action star. I think this is definitely one of his peak films, and why it's so remembered for what it is, and for the sequels ahead, why people wanted more. And he even wants to come back to this role at some point, which I think that if he include him, they're doing multiverse stuff, why not just throw Blade in there? I don't care. And then or have him be a character in Blade, the Marvel Cinematic version. So even so, I think we're about to go home. But before we go home, we got to do some homework for the next episode. Next episode, we're doing, again, chronological. So the next movie is X-Men 2000. That's right. We're going to watch the Bryan Singer classic, X-Men, which I had no idea was a movie. I watched the DVD for Fight Club back in the day, and I saw a trailer for this movie, and I was like, "What is this movie?" And I had no idea it was an X-Men movie because it doesn't look like the X-Men that I know. So I'm very excited to revisit that. Spoilers, we watched it already. We'll talk about it probably right after this. But yeah, very excited to revisit that movie and see if it holds up. So definitely do your homework if you're going to watch with us. Next week will be X-Men 2000. Definitely check that out. And of course, Sly, where can people find you on the net?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at SlyClinMC. If you want to check out what I've been doing lately, they should be on my Twitter. That's probably the most up-to-date, where you can find all the stuff I'm working on.
Fantastic. And of course, you can find me at Night Mute City on Twitter, but also at Point in Progress, where we do so many cool things. We actually have other podcasts. We have the Point in Progress podcast, which we do live every Friday, breakout videos, I believe, on Monday and Tuesday. And we also have, if you love Final Fantasy, we have a Final Fantasy spinoff show called Fantasy in Progress, which is also a cool show that both Harv, Fiona, and Frank do over here on Here Hut Show. I'm not sure when it releases. I totally forgot about that part. But definitely check us out on our YouTube channels or on our audio platforms where we can find them, I'm sure, which I believe we're going to split. Well, the first couple episodes will probably be on the main channel just to be like, hey, check what we're doing. And then we'll have a split off channel. So just keep in mind, check us out at the Point in Progress for now. And then definitely check out when we have a MC University feed separate, I think, as well. I think that would be smart. But until then, class dismissed.
That's him!
Blade is the key. All our strengths, none of our weaknesses.